And we are back for another Monday preview. Guys, the boys are on a road trip. We are headed to Canada. We've got Toronto, we've got Montreal, and we've got Ottawa this week. Big road trip for the boys this week. Hopefully, they'll be able to come away with some points. Maybe stop the bleeding with some of the issues that they've got going on. First up, playing against the Toronto Maple Leafs. This will be the second time that they've matched up so far this season. At the time of recording, Toronto is sitting 6th out of 8th in the Atlantic. Their last 10 are 5-3-2. They have quite a lengthy injured reserve list compared to some other teams in the NHL. You've got Carlo out on a week-to-week, Joshua day-to-day, Riffai on LTIR, Stolarz week to week, Tanev on long-term injured reserve, and then Joseph Wall on day-to-day. Your new goaltending tandem as of right now for the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to be Hildeby and Akhtimov. I'm so sorry if that is not how you pronounce, but both of them are from the Toronto Marlies. They had to call up both of the goaltenders because you have both Anthony Stolarz and the Wonderwall out for Toronto Maple Leafs. So that's going to be the biggest thing, is just need to put pucks on net. That is going to be huge for the Toronto game. If we can just put a bit more of an effort into just throwing pucks on net and kind of seeing what works, I think that'll be huge for the matchup. I think this is definitely a game where we need to see a bit more from your goal scorers, like your Frank Nazar, your Oliver Moore, even your vets with Bertuzzi, Donato. Like, not only do people need to step up with Bedard's absence, but this is definitely a game where you need to just start throwing pucks on the net and seeing what works. Because, you're not having Toronto's usual goaltenders. You're going to want to try to capitalize on that. And then the other big thing is, because this is Toronto, just guys, keep the pucks away from Austin Matthews and William Nylander, because nothing good happens to us if either of them have the puck. So yeah, this is just a big, we need to see a lot more shots, a lot more just not worrying so much about, finding the perfect spot to throw the puck at the net, but just throwing absolutely everything at the Toronto goaltender and hoping that, something goes in, maybe a dirty goal, maybe it doesn't need to be pretty. We just need a lot more quantity in terms of our shots on goal against Toronto. I think that's going to be one of the biggest key pieces, but it should be a pretty entertaining matchup. Next up, we've got Montreal. We played them, for a home opener. As at the time of recording, for injured reserve, Kirby Dach's out on week to week. Caden Gooley is long-term injured reserve. Patrick Laine is month to month, and then Alex Newhook is month to month. Again, at the time of recording, Montreal sitting 4th out of 8th in the Atlantic, and their last 10 are 5-4-1. Big news for goaltending with the Montreal Canadiens is Jacob Fowler, who is one of the goaltenders from the Laval Rocket, which is the Montreal's AHL affiliate, was called up this past weekend and did very well. So, they obviously still have their other goaltenders, but that was just new in terms of call-ups for Montreal this past weekend. Big things for Montreal because, guys, we've already faced them once. It was frustrating. You never like to lose opening day. Biggest thing is to stay disciplined. That was definitely one of the biggest things when we faced against them last time, where, Montreal had the ability to get under Chicago's skin rather quickly and then kind of just capitalized on their emotional reaction to it. So the boys really just need to be disciplined, keep the puck very, very far away from Demidov, and just be very careful. This is more of a bash and pop thing, but be mindful with Bedard out how you choose to match up. Granted, I know that we're away, so we really don't have the option to, but if any ability within your control to, just not have Just be careful with the lines that are going out there, because one of the biggest things for Montreal is that they have depth kind of everywhere with forwards. So just being kind of mindful with who's already out there for Montreal and doing what you can. I think against Montreal specifically, this is going to be a big moment, a big step up moment. Even more so, they've been doing great so far with Louis Crevier and Colton Back, because not only is Montreal performing well, but Montreal is also just a physical team with size, because you've got bigger guys like Slavkovsky. I know Gouli is out, but Montreal still has size, and that, as well as you've got the Jack Eye brothers that are really just the new Mighty Ducks Bash brothers, that truly will fight if provoked. So this is definitely a game for the more physical guys to kind of step up and have a moment. Again, it's always an interesting matchup playing against Montreal, especially with how Montreal has been developing within the past couple of years. So should be very exciting. So like I said, we got Toronto, we got Montreal, and then we've got our friends over at Third Line Plug talking with us about the Ottawa Senators. We've got Tim and Taylor once again from Third Line Plug talking all things Ottawa Senators. Guys, welcome back.
Thanks for having us back. I believe this is our third time?
Yeah.
We'll get it right this time.
I feel like every time y'all set the bar low and then you're exceeding expectations. Like there wasn't much enthusiasm going into the beginning of the year, and then you guys were doing pretty well for a while.
Yep.
But that's just
then the season just became the smoking crusty meme.
Yeah.
Just the East has been such a mess this year, because it feels like Ottawa and Montreal were doing really well, that they were doing really bad, that Detroit has yo-yoed up and down. Like they went to basically the bottom of the table, that they went from the top of the table to the bottom of the table, back to the top of the table. Like there's just no consistency outside of Carolina and Boston, really, and nobody expected Boston. Like that is a team where you'll look at the center depth and you wonder, it's like, can I even use the water analogy here, or is it just dry? Especially with like Elias Lindholm's just been injured most of the season too, and it's just like conventional wisdom being, yeah, you need good centers to compete this league, and Boston's just like.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but we're over on our show. We're very convinced, like it's tight right now, but we think a lot of that has to do with like how compact the schedules are going to be for like January and March. Like it's light now. And I think that's why a lot of teams are, you've got a lot of teams batting around like 500. And then come January 1 is when we're going to see bigger gaps.
Mm-hmm. That kind of makes sense. Although it's funny because like there's like 3 teams that are about as close to a lock as you can get in the East right now, with Tampa, Washington, and Carolina. But the Senators are still considered to be one of the teams with a better shot at it. And I think just once they get healthy again, they were missing Brady Tkachuk for a long time. They've been missing Thomas Chabot, and now they're missing Pinto. And the Chabot injury has been huge. Just because like you're missing a guy who on pretty much any team would be a number 1 defenseman, and he plays number 1 minutes despite slotting in behind Jake Sanderson, who might be at this point one of the top 5 D-men in the NHL.
Is that your way of saying we should trade him to Minnesota? No, I'm kidding.
I thought you were going to say Carolina.
Oh, no, they don't need any more help. They don't need it.
I mean, who knows? Like maybe it'll just be another Rantanen situation.
Maybe
that's the big thing with the Quinn Hughes coming out, and they're like, okay, but is Minnesota planning on re-signing?
He has another year on his contract, so who knows? Maybe he will learn to love Minnesota. I've been to Minneapolis for 10 minutes, and it was okay. I got from one side of the airport to the other. I got on my plane, and I realized I left my keys in Boston.
Oh.
Have I never told you this story?
No.
Okay, so yeah, I went to. I was at an economics conference hosted by MIT. That they did it up in New Hampshire. So like right up in the Presidential Mountains, because that's where the IMF was formed. And one of the Nobel laureate guys put it out. I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to see this. I've always wanted to go to Bretton Woods. Let's do it. So we went to Bretton Woods. And sober Tim's like, you know what? Drunk Tim's gonna lose his keys. So I put it on my nightstand, because this is an old enough hotel to have like nice nightstands.
Mm-hmm.
And then I forgot about them. And I went back to Boston for like a couple days, hung out with some of my friends from grad school, did sightseeing, and then went home. And then I'm like, when I got to Minneapolis, I was like, oh, I should probably have my keys on me so I could just hop in a cab and go right back. And Chelsea, my wife, happened to be in Vancouver for a psychology conference. And I checked my suit bag where I usually put my keys, and they weren't there. And this poor woman from Delta Airlines was watching me like take apart my bags, looking for my keys. And I'm like, oh, crap. And they're like, yeah, you have to get on the plane, sir. I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah. So we get to the Calgary side, and I go through like my Rolodex, like, whose couch can I sleep on? So I am sleeping on like one of my buddy's couches. After I go through like 4 different names. And then like I go to my apartment the next day. I'm like, hey, I lost my keys. And they're like, this is the second set you've lost in 2 weeks. I'm like, we only have the master for your apartment left. I'm like, it's okay. The hotel, it was like a very, obviously a famous hotel. So they sent my keys airmail. So I'm like, yeah, my keys are coming. They've already been sent from New Hampshire. Like, okay, fine, you can have the master. But yeah, so there I was, just in Minneapolis for 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, I can't go home tonight.
Was that the same trip where you were hungover in the cab where Jimmy?
Yeah, yeah. So I was hungover. Like we got back into Boston, and I this is like 3 p.m. and I was still hungover. Oh. Yeah, the thing that you don't tell you about academic conferences, even especially at the highest levels, people they go. Like it's dumb. So yeah, like I was just absolutely hungover, and my hotel. Do you know anything about Boston?
No.
Okay, so my hotel was near Harvard.
Okay.
Which is in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Cambridge is on the opposite side of the city from Logan Airport, where we got dropped off. So I was in this cab going across Boston, and at that time they had the autoplay ads on the screen in the cab, but they only had about like 5 minutes of content, and it was all Jimmy Fallon. And I'm just like dying in the cab, and we're stuck on the highway. And the cat, he's just like, it's okay, brother, you've seen enough. And he turns off the TV and just starts playing like old school East Coast rap. And I'm just like, this is a mood. I don't know what this mood is, but it's better than the previous mood.
I respect
that day forward, I have never been able to like watch Jimmy Fallon. It's just like there's something in the back of my head that whenever I see Jimmy Fallon, I'm like,
you're in the back of the cab.
You were in the back of the cab. But anyway, hockey.
Yeah.
Are you sure this is not Third Line Plug? We usually do a bunch of that.
Well, I remember the first time, like the first podcast we were ever guests on, I told another just absolute not PG story on that podcast, and we're not going to tell it here.
No.
Because I don't want my daughter's at the age of repeating things, and I do not want her repeating the punchline of this story.
There you go. So hockey.
Yes.
Well, like you guys said, you've got some injuries, but you've got a big piece back in your captain. Even though it seems like you guys were playing better without your captain than now with your captain.
It has been
what's going on?
Puck luck, in a word. So we lost a game against St. Louis where we outshot them 40-20. Ville Husso put up just an absurd game. And we're talking about like nets that were empty, all of a sudden not being empty. And it's like the Blues would be in the playoffs if they could get goaltending like this every night. And it's just been games like that. Markstrom went from being just an absolute basket case to man, God, machine for exactly one game. And then they get absolutely dismantled by Tampa Bay the next night. Like, it's just stuff like that keeps happening.
Okay.
Like, there was like one game where the Sens legitimately played awful. And I believe I'm blanking on who they just absolutely no-showed against.
Was it Dallas?
It was Dallas, yeah.
That was like, the 6-1 game, yeah.
The 6-1 game, yeah. But but then like they come in and they just absolutely manhandle Columbus for 40 minutes. And then they kind of stop skating for 15, and that's enough for the game to become close.
Right.
But like, yeah, none of these, like a lot of these games are like Ottawa should have won this game. Sort of games.
Yeah, but it doesn't help that Ottawa would take like a 2 or 3 goal lead, and then we're sitting here like, we're not going to hold it. We're not going to hold this. Oh, look, they tied it up.
Yeah, because like the games they lost, they're like close 1 or 2, like 1 goal games or an empty netter. So like even the Rangers game that they lost, that one should have easily gone to overtime, but it was just weak goaltending, weird bounce. Two of the New Jersey goals were just like that bounced off 2 guys' butts. And one of them was like, "Oh, Mark, what are you doing?" So yeah, like that's just what those games have been. Because when you look, like the underlying are still like the offense has legitimately gotten better. The defense, other than like the inopportune breakdowns, has been for like 55 minutes stifling. Like it hasn't been as stifling, but it's still been good.
Yeah.
You're looking at a team that has, like, if you look at natural stat trick, top 5 expected goals ratio in the league, but bottom actual goals ratio. So it's just bad luck, and the goaltending is turned into a pumpkin again. But then again, that's the other thing where it's like Allmark can just, and this happened a lot last season too, where it's like, oh, Allmark's gone on a skid for 3 games. This sucks.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, the guy plays like an absolute monster for 10 games in a row, and the Sens are back in a playoff spot. So it's like, do you press the panic button? No. This team is just, they are very streaky.
What does pressing the panic button look like to you guys? Like, what point do you have to hit? Or like maybe an aspect of the game is just going wrong consistently where you're like, okay, now I'm panicking. Because I feel like, or at least as an outsider's perspective, Ottawa really likes to dance with that line where they get close. And then, like you said, like Allmark is great. And you're like, yes, that's why we have him. But what does the panic situation look like for you guys?
Well, that's a good question.
I think it's an extended goal trout.
Mm-hmm.
And then you wake up and say, yeah, like like just the schedule compression. You wake up before the Olympics and Ottawa's like a couple points out. Then you're like, because you're relying just the streaks to go the right way. It's never fun to watch either. Like it's great when Ottawa goes on like a 7-game win streak, and then like you look at the 3, 4, okay, here's another 3-game losing streak. Here's another 3-game losing streak. I'm like, okay. And like Ottawa plays such a stingy game where it's like, okay, this is a 2-1 win. This is a 3-1 win. It's like, okay, this is hard to watch. But I also think it's like, if the injuries start continuing to rack up, you're like, because Ottawa, they don't have their pick this year. Like this is the year they relinquished it. And it looks like Gary's just going to be a player hater and probably just keep it. Even though it's like what New Jersey did to lose a pick and still get it reinstated is it's so much worse than what Ottawa did.
I'm not going to lie. I thought Ottawa already rescinded. I feel like this comes up every year.
Yeah, no, this is the year that they're just going to, like, it's gone. And it just happened against Gary's Golden Boys, right?
Yeah. Speaking of injuries, what is any rumor on what's the expected for Shane Pinto?
Couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah, like it's
Last time I checked.
It's not bad, but it's time.
The one that's really going to surprise me is going to be how long is Thomas Chabot going to be out?
Yeah.
He's supposed to be back by the new year.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so it's like I don't think it was too surprising that the Senators were that Pinto didn't come on the trip, but yeah, so like just more time to recover. It's a shame that he retweaked it in San Jose.
On the flip side, because we've talked about injuries and droughts and stuff, what are you liking in the Sens games right now? Or maybe, players specifically, aspects of the game. What's working?
Definitely, I would say the play of our top 6 guys right now. Certainly, the Drake Batherson's having a great run. Tim Stutzles, Fabian Zetterlund. I know when we were on last time, we talked about him. He finally found a bit of a scoring touch, so he's been red hot. And just seeing guys like Jake Sanderson on the back end has been really, really inspiring to watch, especially with Thomas Chabot out. But other than that, I mean, just to see our special teams have been an improvement as of late. I know at times it didn't look too good, and it still hasn't, but it's looked better.
Ottawa's center depth has really come through. So Tim Stute, like as Tay already mentioned, like the top 6 guys have been great, and the reemergence of Dylan Cousins is huge. So I've always been a big Josh Norris guy, and it's a shame to see that the injury bug has followed him to Buffalo.
Yeah.
But
again, I saw that he was out again, and I'm like, wait, he came back?
He came back for a week, and then he was injured again. Being able to swap him and get a pick for Dylan Cousins was fantastic, especially because Dylan Cousins is starting to look like the player that people thought he would be, a legitimate top 6 center.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing a guy who's finally figured out how to play the defensive end a bit. It's not great, but it's not what it was. So Dylan Cousins' ability to generate in the offensive zone is now not a complete defensive liability, which then means that once Shane Pinto's back, you again have 3 centers that you can rotate, and you run Stützle, Pinto, Cousins. And you've got you don't have an elite guy. Like Tim Stützle is a very good player, but he's not on the same level as your game breakers like Austin Matthews or Nathan McKinnon. He's not that. But that means Ottawa can have 3 dangerous lines. So I think the forwards and the top end of Ottawa has worked great. Honestly, I think outside of some wiggly depth issues, and for some reason Curtis McDermott somehow being the most effective guy to plug in your roster for no good reason whatsoever. Team wins with the guy even though he plays like 2 minutes. Wow. And nobody has any good reason for it. The only thing that's been sour has been the goaltending.
Mm-hmm.
And in the absence of Thomas Chabot, Tyler Clevin hasn't been able to fill in.
That was going to be my next question from Krusty about Tyler Clevin and how he's kind of fitting into the Sens roster and what's going on with him.
Well, I know, especially after watching the first round against Toronto last year, Tyler Clevin was certainly a guy that a lot of fans took notice of because he was this young defenseman. Yeah, he was playing sheltered minutes against the Leafs, but you saw a very confident puck-moving defenseman that the Senators could really utilize in their lineup. And unfortunately, coming into this year, he was somebody that I really had my eyes on. I was like, okay, let's see if Tyler can build on what he did in the playoffs. Unfortunately, it's like he's taken a step forward, but 2 steps back.
Okay.
Like, I don't know. Offensively, he's definitely taking a step back. Defensively, he has looked better.
Okay.
But it's really tough because you see a young defenseman where guys basically know, like, okay, he's a young defenseman. What is he going to do, right? So it's not like you have a prime Erik Karlsson back there or Thomas Chabot, like we mentioned, but when you see a guy like Tyler Clevin, who almost looks scared to make moves, that's what really is discouraging watching him.
Mm-hmm. And like him and Spence just have not clicked. So like once Shabbat comes back, you'll see those two split up. So what you'll see is you'll have like it looks like Sanders and Zub is a lock, and they are Ottawa's best two defensemen on right and left. Then you go Shabbat Spence was phenomenal while Shabbat was healthy, and then Clevin Mantampalo and Clevin Jensen have both worked in limited minutes.
Okay.
Like at this point in his career, Nick Jensen is your seventh defenseman, but he's a veteran guy who might actually stabilize Clevin a bit, despite Jensen playing Hamonic tier this year.
Is Clevin getting, with Shabbat being out, like what's the difference in terms of like ice time that Clevin's seeing?
Well, night and day, right?
So do you think, I mean, we have that kind of with all of the younger guys, Artie in particular, who is being sheltered at the beginning of the season, just because they didn't want to put the young kid out for too much, and they ran 7 defensemen for the longest time. But do you think that, he might be just treading water a bit because all of a sudden he's getting significantly more ice time than he did prior?
Well, I think it's not just more ice time, it's harder ice.
Yeah.
So like he's playing against teams second and third lines instead of third and fourth lines. He's just kind of getting exposed that way. Yeah, so it's like it's just a young guy getting his lumps, because it's like when you see him play on the kind of third line, you can definitely see, yep, there's a player here. Reasonable use of the second rounder. The annoying thing is that losing Donovan Sabrango to the waiver wire earlier in the year means that you don't actually get the option to kind of move some of those depth guys around to see what happens, because Ottawa's left side's actually kind of rough down in Belleville. The right side is quite strong because you have Carter Yakimchuk is just tearing up the A right now. So like if Mantampalo and Jensen went down, it's Yakimchuk's coming up. That there's no question about that. But then and that's the thing. Like there's no real worry about the right side, but on the left side, like when you still had Sabrango, it's like, okay, there's no real question on the left side either. Ottawa tried to fill that hole in. They did a minor league swap with they traded Max Gwinnett, who just was not going to play for the Senators ever again. Right. RFA, who would have been U6 at the end of the year. They brought in Lassie Thompson, no space for the guy on the right. So they trade him for Dennis Gilbert. Dennis Gilbert has, like, he's played a little bit, but not much, and it hasn't been
Blackhawk legend.
Yeah, so it's just like, that's what we got. So maybe in the next draft, they start looking at left side talent or some forwards, because that's kind of been the sore spot in Belleville for a while. And like 2 years of no first and another year of no first is going to hurt.
Right.
Yeah, but the upside for the Senators really comes into when you look at our drafting. It's not so much like the first or second round guys that you really see making the impact. It's the later rounds, whether it be the Drake Bathersons, obviously Tim Stutz got selected third, Sanderson went fifth. But when you look at our history, like I said, Bathersons, guys like that, we took them rather late in the draft, and they've been making an impact on this team.
Mm-hmm. And Clevin's a second. Gilbert's a guy that they filled in with a guy who they got with a seventh. So, and like Stephen Halliday looks like he could actually be a guy who plays regular minutes with the Sens in like a bottom six, middle six sort of capability. And they pulled him in with a fourth. So it's like they actually are getting some value from the later rounds. Shane Pinto is a second rounder. So yeah, like they're getting a lot of value from the later rounds of the draft. But not having a first kind of sucks. Definitely. But then again, it's not like Kevin Korchinski's doing all that much these days.
No, he is not.
So like, and like the thing that kind of makes this hurt even more is that Tyler Boucher has just been injury sick.
And it looked like he was finally turning his career around, and just looks like it stalled out again.
Another injury.
Big yikes. It happens.
I blame Pierre McGuire. That was a Pierre McGuire move, and everybody knows it.
It was like he made 2 moves with the Sens.
Big yikes. All right. Final thought question. We can go 2 ways with this. One is your realistic view on your expectations and kind of what you think is going to happen. We'll go to like up until the Olympics with the Sens. And what is your optimistic dream? What you kind of see within the next couple of months for the Sens?
Ooh, that's a good question. What do you think, Tim?
Like, optimistic dream is that they settle into like the number 2 spot in the Atlantic.
It's pretty good.
Because Tampa's probably run away with
Yeah.
the Atlantic lead this season. Like, they're the only team that has separation right now.
Remember when everybody was freaking out about them?
I thought they was just because they were releasing those new jerseys for the outdoor game.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like the Bruins. They're not out until they're out.
Yep. I know. And how many years have we been saying that about Boston too? Eh? We've always said, "Oh yeah, the Bruins were probably the team that gets knocked off," and that's like 5 years ago. We've been saying that. We're like, "Oh."
Well, like
okay,
a couple of years
so
ago, like, you know what? I'm not gonna bet against the Bruins because every time I say this is the year they're out, it comes to bite me in the butt.
So Taylor, what are your thoughts? What are your expectations?
reasonable expectations and realistic expectations. Yeah, I think I agree with Tim. I think having that second spot in the Atlantic would be pretty good. I know that there are teams like the Habs, like the Leafs. You know, there are teams like that are trying to catch up to that. But I feel like it's going to depend. The Sens really are going to have to, number one, they got to learn how to hold a lead. That's a big thing for them. Like, obviously, yeah, they're streaky. Yeah, goals don't exactly go their way, but you've got to get into the habit of, okay, just because we have a 3-goal lead doesn't mean we could just be like, all right, we got a 3-goal lead, we're fine. Like, the team has to hold leads. And I mean, I don't know how many times this year I've watched games or I've seen the condensed games, and I'm just like, how is it this team made the playoffs last year and we can't hold a lead to save our life?
Well, the answer is Allmark.
I know, but I tried not to throw Linus under the bus.
Even he admits he hasn't played well this season. And, like, Linus Allmark is a streaky goaltender. Like, probably the remedy for that is Marilyn plays well enough that he could take on 30 games. That's basically it. Because I'm not sure Linus Allmark does well with 60. Actually, I don't think many NHL goaltenders play 60 anymore.
No, there's no point anymore, right? You're not going to see the days of like Martin Brodeur playing 75, Grant Fuhr playing 77 games a year. Like, you're just not going to see that, especially because you play those amount of games in the regular season, then you get to the playoffs, and then you got nothing left.
Yeah.
So I can honestly see why teams want to go the goalie dual route, right? I mean, it makes a lot more sense. Boston proved it for years with Ullmark and Swayman.
Even the Caps too. I mean, with splitting Lindgren and LT pretty, I mean, not completely 50-50, but they try to hit it pretty gosh darn close, an even split between the two of them.
I agree with that.
Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on. It should be a very fun matchup. Hope it's an exciting 60 minutes. But thank you so much for coming on, guys.